On today's episode, I want to take a look at the consciousness of all of the sports that we care about, that we talk about every single day, and see how they all stack up against each other. We're talking Olympic basketball, 3-on-3 Olympic basketball with Jimmer Fredette, the best hope for an American gold in 3-on-3, and some of his NBA stuff and who would make the best 3-on-3 team right now with NBA players and life advice. I want to start with a little bit of a heads up. I have a maroon shirt on today. I didn't even know I owned it. And I was going through my laundry and said, look at that guy. Let's throw that one out. So that's a little bit different. So I'm feeling a little different leading into the Open today because I don't have any NBA topics. I don't have any tears for you. I just don't have it in me. And I don't have, let's start talking about quarterbacks because, I love talking about quarterbacks. And I'm just not really ready for the NFL stuff. I will be shortly once we take a little bit of a break here. But I wanted to talk about where we're at with a bunch of the different sports right now that we talk about and some of the ones that we don't talk about. And this was inspired by this ratings piece that I was reading about NBA ratings. And if you look at the NBA Finals ratings and you look at the total number of viewers, it's an alarming number. It's low. You had a blue blood franchise in there with Boston, but maybe it's because it was a competitive series. And you compare those numbers to where you were at not that long ago. But there was the attraction of the LeBron story that brings in the same way I watch Connor McDavid in the Stanley Cup final, the same reason why some of your friends that don't have any time for the NBA will watch if LeBron's involved. You have the Golden State part of it. So you didn't have that this year, but it's still, I don't know how you could look at any of the total viewer numbers in not that long of a time and compare them year to year and go, well, how is that anything but alarming? Ratings can be a little tricky in talking about them. When I look at like TV series and what's deemed successful and what isn't, the overall raw number of this many people watch this show every episode versus what we used to have when we grew up, like it's not even the same. It's like a different sport, even if it is supposed to still be the same one. I saw something the other day where there was a show that was like this many million. I was like, wait, that many million people watch that show? And then it was from a streaming network. And when I read the fine print, it was like total number of combined minutes streamed. Like, oh, well, that's a huge number. So why am I talking about NBA ratings? Well, because we have to look at the rights deal. That those of us that love the league and try to figure out what these contracts mean and what cap space is ultimately going to be and why it's different this time around from the non-smoothing approach that the Players Association pushed for, which led to Durant on the Warriors. Like, we have to pay attention to some of this stuff. And if you think about the first numbers that were floated out publicly about what these rights deals could be for the NBA, that number is always a very high number, whether it's TV rights, whether it's a free agent in sports, or a contract negotiation from some of the highest people at the level of the media, where you'll hear the number and I think all of us go, whoa, that number is huge. But it's just the first move. It's the part of the public negotiation, so that even if you don't reach this number that's first floated out, you feel like there's this awareness of the number of the person that you're going up against. And I really, I feel like that's a pretty common thing, and it's been happening for years. So when the first NBA rights number was floated out there, I think it was like triple of what the current rights deal was. Like, I think a lot of us just go, oh, okay, I guess that's just what it's going to be, because the rights train seems to never be slowing down, despite some of these other raw numbers that you would think, well, how do these things both line up? Like, how can this one number keep going down and this other number keeps going up and up? The other thing that was happening leading up to some of the concern of where that NBA number could land is that you had a bunch of owners selling. So you were like, why would Cubans sell now? They have to have a pretty good read on the inside. It's 30 of these owners that have to know where the rights fees are going. So are they getting out in front of it because they feel like maybe the bubble's the wrong term, but the train may actually be slowing down? But we always have to understand, and it's just a great reminder all the time of like, whatever the spreadsheet says about what a franchise takes in and takes out each year, it's irrelevant in comparison to what the appreciation of these franchises are at. So if I own a house that I buy for $1 million and I'm renting it out, and between the taxes and the insurance and every other thing that I'm paying for the upkeep, if that number's more than the rent Does it mean I'm losing money if I can sell the house in 10 years for 3 times what I paid for it? Well, no, I don't think anybody would really ever argue that. And that's why I've always kind of pushed back on some of the owners' operating losses stuff based on the value and the escalation of how absurd the franchise values have become. But they become valuable with this TV contract that just seems to go up and up and up every single time. So I think the good thing about where we're at with basketball is that because of all the TV money that comes in, not just the stuff that goes to the owners and increases the value of the asset that they own, you have all of this money being paid to players, where I actually want to give the NFL players some credit here. I didn't see a lot of NFL players tweeting and complaining about NBA contracts this time around. It's like somebody told them there's 15 players on a team instead of 53. So congrats to those guys figuring that part out. I didn't, because it's kind of my favorite content whenever I see the NFL guys just eye roll emoji, the whole thing to every NBA deal. The other improvement that we've had, at least that I'm aware of in my lifetime, is that when these huge numbers come out, even if we can question them and go, that seems a little bit high, there's not the animosity towards it. There really is very little animosity towards the pro athletes signing these massive contracts, because I think we're numb to it and maybe we're just better educated. I always think back to when I was a kid in the Sports Illustrated. Well, I don't think about it every single day, but in the context of what we're talking about here, if you're around my age, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was 1987. Sports Illustrated had the salary issue where they put everyone's salary from Major League Baseball in the issue. And on the cover, it was like all these different random pictures of all these players. And the total for all of the active players on opening day rosters for 624 players, the total, not, the entire league's total payroll was $256.3 million. So if Scotty Barnes or Franz Wagner make All NBA, their current contract will be more than everyone made in baseball in 1987. Now, Eddie Murray made $2.46 million. And when you're a kid, like, it just seems like make-believe. Like, that can't even be real. That was the highest individual salary for that season, all the way down to the rookie minimum of $62,000. I remember even thinking at the time, I was like, God, that seems kind of bad, $62,000 to play baseball. But I also remember the other part of that was the Little League dads. Because if there's one thing dads hated when I was a kid, suburbia, middle class, middle lower class, depending on where you were at, depending on, where you waited for the bus, the dads hated this issue. They despised it. The animosity towards it, just thinking these guys are playing baseball, making this kind of money, like, what a waste, what a waste. And if you relate it to today's salaries, like my counter to any of, I just don't hear it very often anymore. Maybe I'd argue with my friends when I was younger from college, be like, I can't believe these guys are making this much money. It's like, okay, but when you say that, that means you wish the owners made more. Like, who roots for that? And I think less people, if they even exist anymore, are rooting for that. And I think that's real progress. But the NBA does feel more political than the other sports. I don't know if this is where I'm supposed to say we've never felt more divided, because I think there's such a recency bias of what's happening today, the bias of the present, that whatever's happening right now is the most important thing at every single time, when it's just not true. So whenever I'll hear people say stuff outside of sports, like, oh, this has never been worse or this has never been better, it's like, well, no, your awareness has never been more heightened than it is right now. But there is a lot of NBA coverage that feels very political. And I don't get very political on this podcast. I'm not a very political person. But when I look at some of the coverage of Biden and everything that's gone on, and then I'll see video clips of somebody that was on TV telling us one thing, and now after the debates, completely changing course, I can't help but think, like, I hope I'm never like that. I hope I'm never like that. And I'm not even talking about anything that important. But as somebody that does do the job in front of people, has been doing this for over 2 decades, be like, why would you ever trust me again? Why would you ever want to listen to me again? If that's how quickly you can change course and completely contradict everything that you've ever said. Not to say that we don't contradict ourselves in sports, but like, this stuff's much more important. And yes, before anybody gets upset, I could look at the other side of the political spectrum and find clips of people on other networks that I can't stand either. All right. I'm pretty simple that way. So it feels like we have that in basketball, this divide, more than any of the other sports that are on our radar. Whether it's the MJ LeBron stuff, you two are insufferable. You two extremist groups on this debate. There's all of these times, like, even if I'm an MJ guy, I'll see MJ arguments being made where I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. And I don't know if we have that in sports the same way we have it in politics. Like certainly there are guys that we like. There are guys I don't like. That's pretty clear. You could, those of you that listen to this podcast all the time, probably put that list together pretty quickly. But I just try to never be necessarily like, I hope I'm never unfair, or I strive to not be unfair. But basketball has that more in it now than I think any of the other sports. And then there's this other element of basketball where I don't know if it's an analytical divide, but it happened with baseball. If you think about like the early acceptance of advanced stats in baseball, it was really contentious because there was all these smart people coming in telling the people that were outdated how dumb they were. And it wasn't like, hey, let me explain this to you. It was more along the lines of like, oh, you think Adam Dunn isn't awesome? Must suck to be you. I mean, there was just this condescending tone. But now that baseball is kind of off of the radar, I think we have it in basketball. And there's also an aesthetic part of basketball that we've never had in baseball where we can watch a player just visually be so entertaining, but then we can find numbers that maybe destroy the idea of how impactful this visually appealing player really is. In a way, I'm glad Iverson played when he played before we had all of these numbers, although you can go back and look them up. And then I don't know what's going to happen to Iverson. I don't know if he's going to age well, but it was so spectacular and it was so much fun. But there's a real argument there that if he had played today, there's no way he's appreciated the same way. And I don't think we have that in baseball where we debate the aesthetics of somebody. Like nobody's going, hey, that center fielder's awesome because he runs fast and I love his swing and he tracks a ball really well, but he has 18 home runs and he hits 220 and strikes out all the time. I don't think there's that debate in baseball the way that there is in basketball. So I always think about Iverson because in a 2024, a prime Iverson, he would be perceived as a completely different player because there's some real inefficiency there that's on the back of his, in this case, basketball card. There's some similarities in football, and then there's things that are a little bit different. If we just go based on the players and the debates and who we like and who we don't like, quarterbacks are a little different now because the old numbers that we would go to can become kind of irrelevant. Like, sure, you want to have a lot of touchdowns. Yes, you don't want to have a lot of interceptions, although I've started to value interceptions a little bit more because it tells me that you're actually raising your level of risk at times. Completion percentage numbers used to always mean everything to me. And now it's like, well, there's so many easy throws in all of these offenses. That could be the most misleading number of all of this stuff. Now, you usually can find some of the advanced numbers with quarterbacks that can strengthen your case or destroy some of that you don't really want to. But if you think about each year when we go in and rank all of the quarterbacks, you don't get very long down the list before we start having the same debates about a guy that might be like 5, 6, or 7 as if that's a bad thing. And some of those debates probably be a little bit more similar to what we have with some of the NBA stars that we're constantly just going in this cycle of who's good and who isn't. Now, the other part of the football conversation that kind of gets back to the beginning of this open is every time the basketball number goes down, football guy gets a hard on. I don't ever understand that. There is no debate. Football is a superior product. It's a superior television product. You could say that, I mean, the numbers, there's not really any debate about it, but there always kind of becomes this superiority thing with it, which maybe makes it the American sport, right? Looking down on other things, where I have friends that think it's some kind of like badge of honor to like the NFL more than anything else. It's like, man, I mean, I don't want to make a Kid Rock joke here, but it's just like, what are you winning by telling me basketball and the NBA suck, but football is awesome? Like, are you going to leave this conversation like walking around with your shoulders higher than me? Like, I don't understand. Like, some guys will look at me as like, I can't believe you still care about the NBA. Like, I still believe in wrestling. I'm like, look, I love basketball. I actually can like both. I can do both things. It gets really elitist, as if, whenever I think about like rich families and vacationing, and be like, oh, you're still skiing in New Hampshire? That's cute. So with baseball, the daily consciousness was destroyed in a very short amount of time. It's actually incredible. And I was at both ends of it, when it was an everyday thing to rarely doing it ever. It's not because I don't still appreciate the sport or love it. It's crazy how fast that happened. Like, it happened really fast, but it's true. So whatever baseball divides we have anymore, I don't even know that we really care. Basketball, very divided. Maybe that should be the American sport. The unimpeachable NFL. Hockey, afterthought. I don't know where it is in the daily conversation against baseball. I mean, it still can't be close to baseball regionally. But I think it's a great reflection of hockey guy, is that it was just a good hang. Maybe I didn't see the negativity because I'm not in it every single day, but as a casual dropping by to watch the playoffs and then watch the final and loving every minute of it, NBA McDavid gets treated entirely different than NHL McDavid. NBA McDavid gets destroyed for days and days and days. In Game 6 and Game 7, hang on him like a stain. Maybe it will in hockey, and I'm just not in it enough. But there's no way it's as nasty as it would be for him in basketball. So that leads us to soccer. Soccer right now feels like pre-success Boston. I'm not talking about the Revolutionary War. I'm talking about parades, championships. Resources, passion, doubt. But the most important part of that is the passion part, is that people care now. People care about soccer in a way they didn't care about it not that long ago. I'm going to tell a story. I remember being at ESPN, first year was 2006. So I think I don't have it to the exact year. I just remember the segment because I was like, whoa. It was like 06, 07, 08, right around there. A coworker, a host, didn't like soccer, decided to shit on it for an open segment. And I'll tell you, it's a win. Back then, it was a win. Like, hey, I don't have anything to do today. Hey, I'm going to shit on soccer in segment B. All right, sounds good. His position was that don't tell me it's the beautiful game. Don't tell me that it's too hard to understand. Don't tell me that this sport is just superb to everything else when your GDP sucks. It was a very American way to go about it. That segment played 17 years ago. Would not play now. I actually know the host. He wouldn't do that segment now. I don't think it would go over that well. But it was an interesting way to attack soccer. I mean, like, if you're so civilized, what are your exports? So the reason I'm bringing this up, because again, I didn't have an NBA open for you, is one of my favorite things that I didn't expect to happen has been watching WNBA coverage. I did not expect that to happen. But there's a similarity with soccer. Because if you think about Soccer Guy, which was probably the toughest entry point for so many of us that didn't care about soccer, was like, it's not even the sport. It's like, that guy is just annoying the shit out of me. Why does he have Umbros on? Does he even play? There was this gatekeeping where Soccer Guy wanted you to care more about soccer. He wanted you to talk about soccer more. But then when you started to, then he got pissed at you for doing it, which is always one of my default positions on different times. When people are like, how come you don't do more of this? Or how come you don't do any of this? It's like, do you really want me to? Do you want me to actually talk and share opinions and be definitive about something that I don't even spend any time on? You don't want to hear that. So why would I give it to you? Like, I like whenever Bill and I will kind of throw 10 minutes around on something that we're not super educated on. And then people are like, you should do more of that. I'm like, I don't know. I'd argue we should have done less of that. But soccer is a good blueprint for what's happening with the WNBA. Because if you're a diehard soccer guy, you probably didn't like any of that stuff back then. I'm sure there's plenty that you don't like now, but I mean, we can all find stuff to complain about if we want to. But you have to admit the position of where the media treated your sport just over 10 years ago, and now people being upset because they care. You may not like their conclusions. You may not like the casual soccer fan saying this guy's good or this guy isn't, or systems or all these other teams, because you're more locked into it than they are. But it's not this disparaging tone about the sport that you care the most about. But I think the same thing's happening with the WNBA right now. I'd imagine passionate WNBA fans feel like their sport has been overtaken by all these guys that have never been passionate about it. When I think back on a potential WNBA topic for the radio show, wasn't happening. Wasn't going to happen. The audience didn't want it. The host didn't want to do it. And it had way more to do with financial reasons, ratings reasons, than it did. Because I think misogyny clearly is part of some people not being able to get over this barrier of giving the sport a chance or trying to find a way to appreciate it. So, I mean, look, there's all these options too. Some people, it's just a time thing, but that's not happening right now. The awareness that the WNBA has, at least the last couple months, is a completely new thing. It's not just ratings or attendance numbers, all that stuff. The daily consciousness of those of us that are in sports every single day, it's starting to happen. But it feels like the WNBA world doesn't like it, which I can kind of understand, but I also think is unfair. Like, you think people that have watched basketball their entire lives can't watch a couple WNBA games and come to some conclusions? The good news, though, and I do believe it's good news, is a lot like soccer, that phase 1 into phase 2, is that this might just be phase 2 for the WNBA. Where now that people have grown up a bit, people have matured a bit with soccer, where now when they lose to Uruguay, you're mad about the roster, you wonder if the skills are there, you're mad about the coach, playing style, and all these different things, is the immaturity in your criticisms have probably gone away a little bit as you've been more attached to the sport. And that, I think, is the hope for the WNBA, is beyond some of the arguments that I've seen, which, by the way, to be totally fair, like, this is the deal. Once people start talking about you, you're going to hear things that you don't like, which, by the way, is just like all of the other sports. Someone who's played in the WNBA can make just as dumb of an opinion as somebody that's new to it. All right. But the hope would be for the league to have that kind of phase 3 moment where maybe soccer's on the cusp of it. Maybe it just means international success for everybody to kind of buy in. But that would be the goal, is that now the conversations become about rosters and outcomes and all the other stuff that we have in the other sports, with obviously a sprinkling of all of the stuff that we probably don't like. He's been on the show before. I'm really excited about this. He's a member of Team USA for 3-on-3 basketball for the Olympics coming up here soon. He's also the 2011 Player of the Year in college basketball. It's I don't know if we'll call him good friend, but it's just good to check in with him again. It's Jimmer Fredette. What's up, man?
Russillo, it's great to see you again. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I always love coming on. Big fan of the show. Listen to you guys every week. So it's got to have a magic minute at some point. Get Ceruti in here. Talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, we'll ask you at the end if you like the Franz contract, and you and Ceruti can discuss that one.
Let's go.
Okay, I'm uneducated on this. I mean, I knew it was happening. 3-on-3 was named an Olympic sport in 2017. From what I researched today, the U.S. team did not qualify for like the medal round in 2020. So let's kind of jump into your timeline of now representing the country and being part of this. Like, how did it all start for you?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the first Olympics, the men's USA team didn't even make it to the Olympics. Like, it's hard to qualify. The women's team made it. They ended up winning gold, and our whole goal for 2024 Paris was to obviously make it to the Olympics first, and hopefully do really well. But so after the 2021 season, I was in China playing 5-on-5, and it was during COVID. It was a difficult season. Was over there for 7 months, didn't get to see my family and kids. So I came back and was like, you know what, I can't do that again. I don't want to go back over to China and play. I just want to be with the kids. And so I took some time off. I took like 6 months off of basketball, and I wasn't playing. And I ended up going to play in the TBT tournament in the summer. And at that point, I played pretty well. So the 3-on-3 guys, Jay Demings and Ryen Russillo, who are part of the committee, called me up and was like, hey, are you going to play 5-on-5 next year? Are you not? Or if you're not, would you be interested in playing 3x3 basketball? We're ahead of the committee, and we want you to come and try to help us qualify for the Olympics in 2024. And as soon as I heard Olympics, I was intrigued, right? I was like, man, what an opportunity that could be. I'm not playing, but I feel like I'm in good shape, and I could, provide for a team and play good basketball still. So I jumped in with 2 feet, and in 2022, in October of 2022, I played my first 3x3 tournament, and then I've been playing ever since.
So when you said 6 months without basketball, what's 6 months without basketball really like for you? Like, are you actually not even touching a basketball or getting shots up, or you're talking about competing?
Competing. I'm for sure playing still, right? Like, I'm staying in shape because I still felt like I was probably going to do something at some point. I just needed kind of like a little bit of a break from it. And I was kind of just waiting for the right opportunity, I would say. and just needed some time off. But for me, I love working out. I'm always going to continue to work out. I just love playing basketball, even if it's just going to the gym by myself. So I stayed in good enough shape, whereas I got a call, I could rev it up pretty quickly and be back into game mode pretty quickly.
So was there even a tryout, or was it just understood if they're calling you, if you say yes, you're on the team?
No, yeah. So there was a whole process. I mean, they called me because they didn't know if I was going to like it. They didn't know if I was going to be any good at it, that type of thing. They had a hunch, obviously, but I went to kind of like a training camp, USA training camp in 2022 in New York. And we had a bunch of G League guys that were there, and they're all trying to figure out, who's actually going to be a good fit for the sport, who wants to play. Because it's not just, hey, you're going to go to, a city in the US and play and then come home. Like, these tournaments are not in the USA. They're over in Europe. They're over in Asia. They're in the Middle East. They're in Philippines, so you have to travel a lot to get to these tournaments. And, and then you travel from there to another city, and you kind of have like this little circuit. So it's not like, it's super easy travel, and, the accommodations aren't usually amazing, and the courts and the venues aren't always great. There's a lot of things that go into it that are not easy. So they want to see who is actually wanting to play and who can deal with those, kind of conditions sometimes, in order to make sure that they're like, all right, this guy's actually in.
So whenever I think about like roster construction and, hey, they traded for this player and they could sign this guy, like, you always hope that all the offense that we want on the floor in a 5-on-5 game, because I think that's where the game is. You just want to put as many offensive guys ideally together, but that they don't overlap in a way that, gets in the way of each other, that it's complementary. You hope to have guys that can score from different positions on the floor. I'd imagine the priority with 3-on-3 is like, that's even heightened, because you really need all the areas covered. Like, it'd be one thing to say, oh, we have 3 guys that can shoot, but if you don't have somebody that can rebound, so like, how do you try to, like, what's the theory on the approach of building the perfect 3-on-3 group?
Yeah, no, it's definitely different. I mean, you'll see different strategies from different teams. Sometimes a team will have one big that's really big, like 6'9", 6'10", that you can just throw it into the post and kind of play off of him. They're trying to create a mismatch on that, get someone to switch, like a guy like myself, to switch on to him and then just roll him in the post and just try to win by ones, right? Making easy ones. And there's other teams that are constructed more of guard oriented, being that fast paced play, being able to get space and be able to hit twos. And for me, that's kind of, we have a little bit of both. We have a big guy, Kareem Maddox, who's about 6'8", who played at Princeton, who's a really good player, gives us an inside presence. But then we got some guys that can shoot and score from the outside. But so you'll see a mix of everything. But ideally, you want guys on the court that can kind of do a little bit of everything, because you have to. You can't hide in 3-on-3, right? You can't just stand in the corner and not dribble or pass or touch the ball. Everyone touches the ball. Everyone has to know how to move without the ball. Everyone has to know how to dribble and create a ball, create something off of a ball screen. You have to be able to set screens. So you have to be able to do a little bit of everything. So generally speaking, you want someone between like my height and like 6'7", that can be switchable, that can kind of play multiple positions, that can shoot an open and make it from the open, an open 2, but also can move a little bit. If you can't move in this sport, it's difficult, because then you're going to get guys that get open 2s, and the 2 is worth so much more than the 1. It's super important to be able to knock those down and be able to guard the 2-point line. So you'll see a mixture of it, but ideally you want switchable guys that can kind of do everything.
Yeah, the math is really important to remember with all of this. And anybody that played 3-on-3 is like, well, this isn't exactly breaking news that it's 2s and 1s. But when you're thinking about like real competition, the 3-pointer in the NBA game is worth too much, really. I mean, the value of the 3 versus the 2 is too much. And then to think that you're doubling up in this version of scoring, like, this must be why you got the call on top of everything else.
For me, I was like, this is great. For 2s and 3s worth 2 double, I'm just going to shoot 2s all game, right? Unless I get a wide open 1. I mean, it's funny because you look at it, you play the first to 21 or whatever the score is after 10 minutes. They're only 10-minute games or first to 21, right? So they're super fast games. And if you make 1-2, you basically make 10% of your points, right, for the game. And you think about it that way. It's like, man, you make 2, 3, 4, 5 twos, obviously you're going to have a great chance to win. And that's what I bring to the table for sure, being able to space the floor and be able to be a threat at any time, because then a lot of times people will sell out for the two, me shooting the two. So you'll get two guys that jump out at me at a ball screen, and then we get a really easy one, right? We get a dunk at the rim, and that's what you want. You want either an easy one or a two. And so you're not looking for a whole lot else besides that. So, being able to shoot the ball from anywhere and create that space and have that threat is a big deal in the sport.
I want to talk more about your teammates here. You mentioned Kareem Maddox. Like, his story's crazy. I mean, I didn't realize he
Yeah.
was 34 years old. And
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of guys thinking like, well, wait a minute, if there's some 34-year-old guy, like there has to be a better big at 6'8" that has a different profile. But he's about as decorated as you can be when I started looking up all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what is about him that makes him perfect for Team USA?
He's obviously our most veteran player. He's been playing 3x3 for about 8 years now, right? And that's a long time to be playing 3x3. That's getting into like the Serbian guys that have been playing forever. He's been playing with all those guys for a long time, and so he brings a confidence to the court, but also a savviness and a calmness to the team, right? Like, he's been in every position. He's seen everything as a 3x3 player. That helps when we get out there. And obviously, he was the defensive player of the year at Princeton when he played there. So he obviously can play defense. He's a low post present. He can shoot the two ball. He's long. It helps. He gets a lot of blocked shots because of his length and his athleticism and his anticipation. So he just brings that veteran leadership that we need, so that when something goes wrong on the court, it's like, hey, listen, it's okay. Let's do this. We're going to get back into this thing. I've seen this situation before.
Okay. And then Kenyon Barry, another Rick Barry's son.
Yeah.
Which is just an incredible run when you think about Rick. What did he try out for Team USA 6 decades ago or something?
Yeah.
What's his game about?
Yeah. Funny, just quick. Lisa Leslie, we just saw Lisa Leslie here in Vegas the other day, and she comes up to Canyon. She's like, Canyon, I remember you when you were in your mom's belly and all this stuff. So everyone knows Canyon and Team USA because his mom was a part of it. His dad's been a part of it. He's just, he's a guy that's been around and knows everybody. But he's a great player. He's a guy that is, he can shoot the ball, but he's probably the best straight line driver in 3x3. He's really good at just getting downhill. He's got long arms and he's pretty big. He's got good shoulders. He gets into the guys and he's able to get downhill and get a lot of easy ones. So he's huge for us there to get an easy basket. Sometimes we'll put him up top and just set a screen for him, let him get downhill and score the basketball. And he still shoots his dad's underhand free throws. And he's trying to get more people to come do that. So if anybody's listening that's needs to work on their free throws, get Canyon out there. He'll get you in the underhand routine and get you going.
And then you have Dylan Travis, who's part of the Pan Am win in 23. So how does that work with the substitutions?
Yeah. So we kind of start. It's me, Dylan, and Canyon that pretty much always start for some reason. There's no rhyme or reason around it. That's just what we have. But every single dead ball, we just kind of rotate. So we have basically, an unsaid, changing of substitution as you go through. But sometimes you get to the middle of the game and you get really tired playing 3x3. It's physical. Sometimes you'll play for a minute and a half or 2 minutes straight. And it's fast paced. You're sprinting the whole time. It's physical. So whoever's the most tired sometimes will just come out and be like, hey, man, I need a break. I need to come out. And sometimes there'll be two guys being like, man, I need a break too, but you can only have one, right? So you got to use those fouls correctly and make sure that you're trying to stop the game as much as you can. So yeah, you just kind of, in the flow of the game, we have a rotation. And then if some guy really needs a break, then he takes that break. But Dylan itself, sorry, I was going to just say Dylan himself, he's a great player. He's like the guy that keeps us together. He's the heart of the team. He's the guy that's taking charges, getting loose balls, diving into the stand. He's that type of player and just an awesome guy.
So you've been on a run though, now that you've figured this out and you've had it's just a lot different going into 24 than it was 20.
Yep.
And even though I know you weren't part of 20,
yep.
It just feels like there's more of a priority of figuring this out and looking at the team now that you're on and some of these results. This is a completely different level of expectations once you get to France, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, for us, we like to say we're the best 3x3 team that the USA has put together at this point. We've been a part of, some really big wins. And, so, we go throughout the whole FIBA World Tour is what they call it. So we're playing in that currently. So you have Masters tournaments, which are the biggest tournaments in the world, and all the best teams there. So you'll see the Serbian teams, the Latvian teams, the Lithuanian teams, Netherlands, all these teams that are going to be, in the Olympics. You see them at these tournaments. So you face these guys, on a weekly basis. It's not like we don't know who our competition is. We know exactly who our competition is. We see them all the time. It's basically like a traveling circus. You just go from one city to the next playing these teams. And so for us, we've been fortunate to be able to win a lot of these Masters tournaments, which has been huge for us, for our confidence, understanding that we're one of the best teams in the world. But anything can happen in 3x3. That's the crazy part about it. It's such a quick game. Anybody could beat anybody on any day. So you just have to be prepared.
What's the biggest challenge to Team USA?
For us, I would just making sure that we are sticking within our game plan and understanding, like, play the way that we play. You can get into a matchups battle sometimes in 3x3 where you're worrying about your opponent too much, what they do and the things that they do really well. And for us, that's not the formula for winning. For us, it's to make sure that we are playing the way that we play and make them adjust. And I think you have to really think that way when you're playing this game, because if we play the way that we play, make them adjust, now we're in our comfort zone and playing our best basketball. So we have to make sure we continue to think about that and focus in on how we get better and how we can win these basketball games instead of worrying about the opponents.
So I did a bad job in asking the question, the structure and the way I did, or you're just so seasoned that you don't want to name somebody else. So I probably should have stated, like, who is the biggest challenge, but I don't know if you want to say like anyone. Well, are you worried about like discrediting a team? Is like Jimmer didn't even mention us. So is there another guy? Is there one guy? Is there one style of play of like, hey, look, this is the one that we know we're going to have to go up against?
Yeah, I mean, all the 8 teams are actually all pretty good. Serbia is the number 1 team in the world right now. So we're number 2. Serbia is number 1. So they're always the team that we're trying to catch, and everyone's trying to catch. They won the World Cup last year. They beat us in the final in the World Cup last year. They won the Euro Cup this year. So they're the standard in 3x3 basketball. So yeah, that they're obviously a team that we're trying to beat. Latvia was a team that won the Olympics last time, and they're bringing back, the majority of their guys, and they're really good. And the Netherlands are actually really good. Netherlands has some guys that have come in and play, and they're super physical. They just know how to play. So I would say us 4 are probably the top 4. And then, but everybody else, Lithuania is also really good. They got a big guy that can really play. And France will have the home court advantage, so they're gonna come out fired up and ready to go.
I probably shouldn't like assume anything, considering like we've all seen you play. We know you're a guard. But I always think about like basketball and how like the things that you work on in different settings and how that applies to like a real game. Like whenever I see off-season workout videos of big guys, I think they're the most pointless things ever, because it's like all
working on their bag, working on their bag.
Like, okay, cool. Let me know when you're going to ISO in an NBA game, because it's going to happen 0 times. And what can happen to somebody's handle once they get labeled kind of a floor spacer, where it's like you're not going to initiate the way that you did before, and you can work on your game, but then it's like, all right, but if I'm not doing this in a game, then you start to lose your comfort level with these things you've either never developed. Because I don't know if you don't have a handle by the time you're like 17 or 18, maybe even younger, maybe 15 or 16, I don't know that you find a way to discover it all over again. So do you find when you're playing threes that there's elements, I mean, granted, we could talk transition because it's just not an option, but anything that happens where you feel like, okay, I don't want to lose this part of my game because this is just a different approach, and there's just more specific things that I have to prioritize to win in threes, as opposed to the goals that you've had your entire life of playing either in the NBA or internationally.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because when you play 3x3, you're playing on a completely different surface than you've ever played on before. right? So it's like this rubberized court. It's a really nice sport court, right? So you're not playing on hardwood or anything. So when you're out there, the court has a lot of dead spots. The ball doesn't dribble exactly the way that you want it to dribble. So that's the biggest thing for me is my ball handling. Like make sure, like in 5-on-5, I can make a couple of consecutive moves and then be able to go up and get into my shot on a one-on-one situation. Whereas here, it's not really like that. It's way more physical. They let people hand check a lot more. So it's not like you're just sitting out there, between the legs 2 times, crossover into a step back shot. It's more of, hey, I catch the ball, I'm making one hard move, and then I'm stepping back or I'm crossing over and going, because the ball just won't stay with you like the way that you want it to on a 5-on-5 court. So for me, just making sure that I keep my ball handling tight and good when I can actually dribble on an actual 5-on-5 court, but then also practicing not doing those moves and being able to be way more efficient in my movement, so that when I get out onto the real court, I feel that same way and I'm able to get those shots off on a quick move or two and then get into my shot. So something like that's a little bit different, where I generally would do a little bit more ball handling in my workouts, to get off my shot off. But now I'm not as much, because it's just not realistic when I get into the game.
Give me who you think would be the best 3-on-3 team with current NBA players.
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's always the usual suspects that are great, but I'm looking for guys that are definitely like bigger wings that can do everything, right? So I think a guy like Jason Tatum would be really good at this, because he could shoot the ball, he can create his own shot, but he also like cares about defense and he plays hard. He's got good length and he can kind of do a little bit of everything. So a guy like that would be really good. Drew Holiday would be amazing as well. The Boston backcourt, basically, because they're just so malleable, right? They can just do everything. They switch on defense. They can play post defense. They can come off a ball screen and shoot it and score. I think a guy like, obviously, Kevin Durant would be absolutely perfect for the sport. His length and him being able to shoot the basketball the way that he can. So I'd say, a guy like that, or Paul George, even, like, you're looking for that length that can shoot and can handle and then play defense and defend the rim. If you can get 4 of those guys, then you're going to win most of your 3-on-3 games, just because they're able to guard multiple positions and then score in any way that they possibly can. So, those 4 guys would probably be really good.
Sounds like you said no Giannis.
Yeah, Giannis. I mean, obviously, Jokic would be amazing, right? Like it's hard to be like, you know what, these 4.
Yeah, like you didn't mention Steph, and I'm thinking, well, because Steph's going to get picked on defensively, you're going to give up all the other stuff that you get from him. But you're right, like the big switchable wings might be it. So I'm just messing with you a little bit.
No, I know. It's like making your top 5, right? Your top 5 NBA players. Like, there's so many good guys out there. It's hard. It's like objective of how you try to figure out, all right, who's actually the best top 5 or the best top 10. You always have like a few guys where you're like, oh yeah, I probably should have put that guy on it, right? So it's
you also might have been going with the American theme too, so I'm probably not.
Oh, that's well, that's true. I was thinking Americans, and but you saw Jokic play 3x3 in that little video that was going around recently. He was playing against some of his friends. They were saying putting work in. He was kind of shooting one-handed runners from everywhere. So he plays it.
Jokic should be my first pick in any form of basketball.
Yeah, 100%.
So I know,
100%.
Except for true. Ones. He might just get too bored with ones because there'd be nobody to pass to, and he would just lose, so he could go do something else. When you think about 5s, there's just, especially in like an NBA game, there's just all these actions. Like the best offense is like, okay, this is the first thing, this is the second thing, but it really was about the third thing. And clearly it doesn't happen every single possession. I mean, there's probably still too much high pick and roll, but with I don't know if it's the extra floor space or just the lack of the extra defenders or the priority of how a team wants to defend you. I imagine there's a little bit more simplicity with it, though, that like if you can get clear on a high screen, then that's going to be the best option. Like there just shouldn't be anything else. So do we see that with like quicker possessions where you're making the decision that we know this is the best shot that we're going to get here. So we don't need to keep running through all these different actions with only three different guys out there.
Yeah, totally. It's a mixture of both, right? And I think so. If I can get an open shot, I'm shooting it, right? And as as the same thing with my teammates. Like if the best shot that we get is I get a rebound and I dribble it out right behind the 2 point line and shoot it right away because I'm open, that's the best shot we're going to get, right? So you have to be prepared and ready to shoot the ball at any time, and whoever has the first best shot. Like a lot of times in 505, it's like, take a good, have a good shot and make it a great shot, right? Like you always hear that saying. 3x3 is not really like that because you might not even get another shot, right? A good shot is perfect. If you can just get a good shot off, that's what you want to do. So you're looking for the best available, quickest shot. Now, every once in a while, you will try to take the full 12 seconds so that maybe you're a little bit tired. So you need to move the ball just a little bit and then do a screen to roll at the end and take a shot with 2 seconds left on the shot clock, just because you needed that rest period for a second. But generally speaking, you're getting a lot of dribble outs or pass outs into handoffs, rescreens. And it's funny because you could layer probably 2 to 3, even 4 actions sometimes in that 12 seconds. It's just super quick and it's 2 people together, right? So, and that's one of the things that I had to adjust with because they run more stuff than you think. And then all of a sudden they'll just be slipping to the basket for a layup. And you're like, what just happened? I've never seen a play like that before in 5-on-5. It happens so quickly. So you'll see there's some different actions that people run that, you don't generally see in 5-on-5 that, will get you going.
Yeah, it's so true though about just anybody that's ever played. You just think about when you can find your rest. You can find your rest in transition. You can run to the corner and be like, I'm out of here. And then
I'm good for
3-on-3, there's no
No.
hey, I'm just going to hang out over here beyond the 2-point line for this one. And you guys run that. There's no hiding. And I can't wait. I can't wait to watch it. Last time we talked to you, and granted, everybody knows the story, the lottery pick, the BYU records, finding your way in the NBA, ending up overseas, lighting up China, becoming a legend over there. And then, the Knicks stretch of it, the Phoenix stretch of it. Like, where are you now? I don't know if it's a question of like, are you at basketball peace? But I guess I'll just leave it open-ended. Like, where are you now with what your NBA career and what I should just say where your basketball career has gone?
Yeah, no, it's been a crazy ride, right? Ever since college, it's been kind of a roller coaster. It's been super up and down, especially in the NBA. But for me, like, I wouldn't change it. It's been be able to create the person that I am today, not necessarily just the basketball player that I am, but the person that I am as well. Going through difficult times and good times can kind of shape who you are, and I feel like I've tried to continue to pursue my passion and my dream the best way that I possibly could. And I feel like myself as a basketball player is kind of solidified. People know who I am. They kind of know what I've done. Most people obviously know me from college or, my China days. I do have some Sacramento fans out there that still are super loyal and appreciate myself and the family and everything as well, because that's where I was drafted to. But, I feel like for me, I've left an imprint on the game of basketball, and I feel like that's all I could ask for. So I'm 100% at peace with what I've been fortunate to be able to do, and it's been able to take me all over the world to see amazing places and experience some really cool cultures and meet a lot of different people and do some great things. So I'm definitely at peace with how things have gone. Obviously, I got one more thing here that I want to do here in the next couple of weeks, which is pretty crazy. One of the coolest things that I'll ever do as a basketball player and as an athlete in general. But I feel like my legacy has been solidified at this point, and whatever happens now, it's just icing on the cake.
In 19, when you checked into the game against Utah, when you were with the Suns, and the arena goes crazy, huge standing ovation. I know the easy answer is, well, yeah, of course, it was awesome. Like, it was everybody there that appreciated me. But was there any downside to that moment?
You know, downside, it's hard to say. I mean, I would
That's not
say
the right
basically,
word. I'm just
yeah,
trying to, like, I watched you check
I
in and I
get it.
watched the clip again this
I
morning and I
th-
was looking at you and you were kind of like, okay, this is great. But you're still hoping to get like a second 10 day. And
well, that's
I,
the thing. It's almost like I appreciate them, right? I appreciate the fans and I love it, but it's almost like an embarrassment's a different word, but almost like, man, I feel like it's almost, I don't want to feel like a show pony or like go out there and just be someone who, they're screaming and yelling because of my past of what I did before. I want to be able to go out there and play well and have them cheer for me because I did well in the NBA stage, right? And not just because of what I've done in the past. And although I know it sounds weird, and I appreciate the fans for supporting me throughout my career because they've been amazing wherever I've been. But there's also a level of like, man, I haven't really done anything, in the NBA game, and there was always like, I'm trying to focus and trying to do well tonight, and and so there's a little bit of that, of course, when you check into a game like that, just because I'm competitive, right? I don't want people to just just throw things in and cheer for me for not doing anything good. And so I think that there was a little bit of that in there too.
was there anyone on your son's team that, and it wasn't a very good team, um, that was just completely like had no idea who you were? Like, was Bender going, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, you know, I think there's a little bit of that, yes, because at that point, yeah, I'd been over in China, right? So Bender was a guy that was from Europe, and the year afterwards, I went to the Euro League and played in Panathinaikos. So I bet you, if I was there like a year after and I was playing in Panathinaikos, Bender would have been like, "Oh, I know who you are now." But at that point, he was probably like, "Yeah, I don't really know. I've never heard of you before, and I don't really care at this point." But there were guys that still, like, Devin Booker was a guy that watched me in college, right? And he was like, or when I was in college, and he's like, "Man, you were a legend back in college. Appreciated the game. Used to love watching you, shoot from deep range." And most of the guys that played were younger than me, and on that team specifically, so they kind of watched me when I was in college and knew me from there.
Did you light it up in practice?
Well, it was towards the end of the season, so we didn't really have practice all that much, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't a time where we were able to get out there and be like, "All right, we're playing fives. I'm going to show exactly what I'm going to do." If there was never really that case, because most of the time guys were just kind of doing their own thing and resting and trying to just get through the rest of the season. So we would play like ones and twos with some of the younger guys and guys that didn't play. And I will say I was playing pretty well at that point. I was shooting the ball well. I was scoring on people. I mean, you get me in a 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 situation. Most of the time I do fairly well just because I can space the floor and shoot the ball. I'm pretty creative with it. But yeah, we didn't get a whole lot of chance to like go at each other 5-on-5 wise, where I could be like, "Yeah, I'm going to steal someone's spot today." It just didn't happen that much.
Right, because I'm trying to think about, like, I'm not pretending like I know you, but we've had you
Yeah.
on, and when you're taken, and I don't want to repeat too much of what we did before, but I don't even remember the entire interview. But it
Yeah.
was, I just think about somebody like you, okay, and you have this decorated career, and then you have all the pressure being a lottery pick, and it's not working out right away, and then it's like, oh, then there just becomes, because you're on the radar in a way that you're going to be
Yeah.
criticized, and just to be honest, like the way it works, it's like, well, that guy's
Yeah.
not
Totally.
supposed to be great. He's too
Yeah.
small, and
Yeah.
then you look at how the game has evolved,
Yeah.
and you clearly put up serious numbers internationally.
Yep.
And I guess I'm wondering if there's like the ego takes over, where you're like, if I had actually been given a real chance, I could have had this second career in the NBA and it really would have worked out. But the problem is now I'm somehow
Right.
perceived as like damaged goods.
Yeah.
Or is there a realization where the ego gets out of the way a little bit and you think, hey, I know I'm really good, but if I had played like real minutes for a full season, then people are attacking me and switches that are doing all these things. Like, maybe I have to accept that the basketball world is right about me. And I'm not saying that I know
Totally. No.
either
I
one of those, but I
Yeah.
wonder how you go through that process of like those two things fighting with each other.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's interesting because I knew that once I got into the league, right, I knew I was never going to be like an end of the game playoff guy, right? That's just not like I don't have.
How soon was that? What was that like when you were like, oh, wait a minute?
Yeah, it was pretty soon, right? Like I understand, I just don't have the build and athleticism to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to guard this guy right now and lock him up, right? There, you know that you're going to get hunted. That's just the way that it works, specifically in a playoff game. But that being said, I am a guy that could come in and be a heat check guy for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Where they throw you in, they're like, oh, let's see what he has. And then all of a sudden, if I hit 2 in a row, I could flip a game where all of a sudden I, make a few shots, the energy in the building changes a little bit, and then I get taken out of the game, right? And then I let the other guys close it. So I felt like that would have been my ideal role, where it's like coming off the bench, where all of a sudden I could change a game, and if I'm flowing a little bit, especially in the regular season, if I'm flowing and playing well, you can keep me in there for longer. And be able to do that. But I understood what the situation was. But the one thing that I can do is I can score at an elite level, and I can shoot at an elite level. So if I was, given that opportunity on a consistent, nice basis to be able to go out there off the bench to be able to do that, I felt like I could have produced, just fine and been one of the guys that was kind of like a heat check guy that comes in and could really score the basketball and flip a few games that way. And I did that sometimes in the NBA, but I didn't do it, consistently enough. But that's kind of how I thought about it. But my ego got out of the way, once I got older, once I went to China, my ego was out of the way. I was like, I'm either going to get a shot or not. And whatever happens, happens. And, I'm cool with it. It's just, if I did get a shot, I was prepared. Let's just put it that way.
So you don't watch Sam Merrill and go, I could have done that.
Sam's my guy, man. Utah State guy. The thing about Sam is he's like 6'5" or 6'5" or 6'6". I'm 6'2" on a good day, right? And that's just it's just a little bit different, like that little bit of length and athleticism. But yeah, I mean, I think I can do that, right? That's the thing is I know that if I had a chance as a 6th, 7th man to just come in and play and just, hey, for 4 minutes, we're going to give you the ball. Like, just do what you need to do. I think I could have been pretty successful in that role. But I understand pretty quickly. I was like, okay, it's a different level of athleticism. And it's not like I couldn't score. I could. It would just be at the end of the game when people started hunting you. Because when I got into the league, every single time I got into the game, they'd be like, all right, post up, first play for him, right? They were still posting up guards at that point. Like I'd have Wes Matthews, I'd be like, all right, I'm posting him up. Go ahead, like get him in the post and go after it, right? Like that was how it used to be 12 years ago when I first got into the NBA, where now they don't ever do that. It's just, kind of stand in the corner and wait for a ball screen and then see what happens. Was
Wes Matthews disrespectful to you while he would post you up?
He talked a little garbage for sure. But it was, we had the same agent. So I actually knew Wes pretty well. So he would always talk playfully. But the guy that used to love to play against me was Tony Allen. Every single time I got into the game, Tony would be like, all right, I got him. And he'd be like, I'm guarding him. And he wouldn't say much. He would just, guard as hard as he could, like he always would. But you knew that for some reason, he always wanted to guard me.
And for the record, this is a very pro Sam Merrill podcast.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we
love Sam.
Appreciate him. And then
shoot,
when I got to see him live too, that was the first realization of like a Seth Curry, where I was like, do you guys realize that actually when he gets in a spot where he has to handle it, like he can do more. He can actually do more, but yeah, it's just not what he's going to be asked to do. But that's always a sign that I think somebody has a longer runway in the NBA when they're labeled as just spacers, shooters, just stand in the corner. And granted, like not everybody's going to dribble anyway, but in the times where I've seen Merrill maybe get closed out and then have to create something, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like
he can.
There's more to him, which again, a lot of the guys like you that are incredible shooters and scorers, you had the ball in your hands your entire lives. But it just kind of back to that handle thing. When you're never tasked with handling the ball in an actual game, I get worried that part of their skill is just going to disappear, because now you're like, well, I never actually dribble all that much. Like I'm a 2 dribble guy, and then that's kind of it. And I've noticed with Sam, like different scenarios where I was like, oh no, there's way more to him. That makes me think he'll be in the league a long time. But you're right. I think he's like 6'4", 6'5". So
yeah, he's a little taller, but he played a lot of point at Utah State, right? So he was handling the ball, he was making decisions, so he's used to that. I think he could get back into that mode pretty quickly if they asked him to do more. They just they don't need him to, right? So he's doing what he's asked to do right now, and he does it at a high level. It's great.
I just know he listens to the pod, so I wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to be
Let's
like,
go, Sam.
I'm catching
Shout
heat
out to
here
Sam.
on the Jimmers. Yeah. Like Jimmers going, man. He's like, I could have done that.
I'm so happy for him, man. And I've been able to talk to him a little bit. So I just hope he does really, really well. That's what I want.
So last thing, where's the level of nerves for Olympic play? I mean, you've been through it all, but yeah. I wonder if do you have any anticipation of how you're going to feel?
No, it's going to be probably one of the most nervous walking onto that floor than I've ever been playing basketball. One because it's the Olympics, right? It's the biggest stage. There's like 2 billion people that watch the Olympics, right? So it's not like it's hidden out there. It's gonna be on NBC. People are gonna see it. So we understand that it's one of the bigger stadiums we play in. They have a really great setup out there in Paris. But also it's because of the anticipation of anything can happen in a 3x3 game. And you have to be prepared as soon as that first jump or first checkup happens. You have to be in a full sweat and like ready to go, because there's no easing into the game, right? You don't ease into a 3x3 game. You could be down 5-0 if you ease into the game, and then the game's pretty much over, right? So that anticipation of like not knowing what's going to happen and not knowing if the other team's going to make 2 bank twos from the corner, like crazy shots that could happen, that have happened to us before, not knowing what is going to happen, and makes it even more nerve-wracking, because it's like going in for the 100-meter dash, right? It's going to be over really, really quickly, and not always the best team wins. So you can prepare as much as you can and be ready, but you're just still nervous once you get out there. But once that ball does check up, those nerves go, but it's the anticipation that's the most difficult part. So I know I have to try to manage that and try to harness it to make sure that it's good energy when I get out onto the floor, and try to get a nice sweat and a burn before you get out there, so you don't catch that second wind pretty quickly. Because I know that adrenaline's going to take over. You're going to feel real tired in that first couple of minutes. So I'm excited about it, though. Obviously, it's going to be an incredible atmosphere and an incredible experience.
Man, I just got pumped listening to you. I can't wait, man. I cannot wait. Can we buy jerseys?
Oh my goodness. I've had a lot of people ask if they could buy the number 5 Jimmer Fredette jersey. So I think some people have bought the number 5 Anthony Edwards jersey and then put Fredette on the back of it for trying to figure that out. I don't think they have the Fredette one out there yet, but hopefully they will. Let's try to make that happen, because I got some people that want some.
All right. Sounds good, man. I can't wait. I'm really happy for you. And thanks so much for this. All right.
This is great. Thanks for all you guys do. I love listening to this show, so I appreciate you guys.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
The email address, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. We've got Ceruti, and we're ready to go. A follow-up on random praise. We really appreciated the efforts of the conveyor belt guy. Hope he's doing all right today.
Mm-hmm.
Not like a thoughts and prayers thing. Just appreciated his contribution to the show. So somebody else had a follow-up on that topic. Don't read these all the time. Felt like this was a good one to share. Fellas, I took one of the recent emailers' quagmires regarding praising a person in front of him for proper grocery belt stacking as a challenge. I think of returning your shopping cart to the corral as a low-level bar for decent humanity. That said, the other day I was leaving the store and someone went out of their way to return the cart inside since there were so few carts available. I said, quote, "That's a person with a strong moral compass," as they walked past me. And the response was, quote, "The fuck are you talking about?"
I like that person even more now, though, because they do the right thing and they're not doing it for the wrong reasons, if you know what I mean. They're just live. That's how they are. That's how they are in life. Again, glue guys for society. We need those people.
Glue guys for society. Well said.
Because there's plenty of people out there that would be like, "Who's watching me? I'm putting my cart back." Because any girls around? Could they see I'm a good guy? And this guy was like, "Nope, fuck off. I don't care. Let me live my life."
I gave a homeless guy a couple bucks once when I was walking home with a girl.
That was more about.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, still a good deed.
Yeah, right. I mean, if
everybody wins there.
Feels like it. Not sure where I shared that, but yeah. How
did it go? Was she like, wow, Ryan is so caring. Like this is great.
Yeah, because I knew she actually didn't like me, and then she did. Look, I think the quote is really intense, though. It may have been too intense for most mere mortals. That's a person with a strong moral compass. That's a lot. There's a lot in there, and I guess it's not casual. It's almost official. But there's a good chance if the other person is going to swear at you, like that person doesn't have a lot of tolerance anyway. So was there a different approach where you're getting a different, like, could you have just gone, "Hey man, nice move"? Then he probably been like, what was it? What exactly? And then you're in a conversation with the guy and it's like, okay, hey, what'd you do? Oh, I complimented a guy bringing his cart back and I got punched in the face. So there's just a lot in that statement. It's a grand statement. So
I wonder where this was too. Northeast. This guy.
That feels pretty out. Northeast.
Yeah, that checks out. And it's
not Chicago.
It goes back to you saying like, "Hey, could you pat the guy on the back or something?" And I was like, "Don't touch him," because you've gone too far. This guy probably went a little too far with his compliment, even though it was in good spirit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get to an email. I love this one. Groom ranked friends at his bachelor party. 27, 6'1". No other impressive measurables to speak of. I have a dilemma with my hometown friend group. In March, we had a bachelor party up in the Great White North. It was a great time, except for one weird moment. The groom was hammered and decided to rank his friends. I love this. I don't have a problem with where I landed on the depth chart. Rank second, not a big deal, in parentheses.
It's a good spot.
Yep. Great delivery of not a big deal. But we do have one friend who was pretty hurt. I think he assumed he'd be second or third, but he was more like eighth. Backstory on Mr. Hurt Feelings. He doesn't really have a lot going on in his life. The rest of us have corporate jobs all over the country, are doing fairly well for ourselves. He works as a line cook at a restaurant. He still lives at home. He gets annoyed when nobody wants to get tanked and play bar trivia on a Tuesday night. He'll harass our friends that are still local who spend their Saturday nights at his suburban restaurant while he finishes up work so they can hang out when he gets off. He bragged about having the free when his mom was away on vacation for a week. He's 27. He can be really annoying when drunk and is especially off-putting to people who don't know him. He's the friend that's left out of another group chat, if you know what I mean. I know he was hurt when the groom ranked him so low. He went really quiet and left the room. I think things solidified a bit in his head that things weren't going super well for him. Nothing really happened afterwards, and nobody acknowledged it to him. But now this weekend, we have another bachelor party. It's the first time we're all seeing each other since March, and I'm a bit worried how it will go. He doesn't have the best emotional intelligence, and I could see it getting weird. Have you had a situation like this? As you get older, how do you deal with the loser friend? Thanks so much for the pod. Wow. Loser friend felt a little harsh at the end. Okay, I know exactly what happened here. Okay, because I was the loser friend out of the friend group. And what you're
and
doing,
you realized it. You realized it at the time, or
I already
it was
knew
like
it.
Okay.
But
so that's the issue here. Is I feel like this guy didn't understand, and it's really all just come. It's like a ton of bricks right now.
Well, if he's matching his resume up to the other guy, but the whole point that I'm going to make here, and that I'm going to hammer this, you're 27. So what you're prioritizing as a good person or a good friend or a bad friend, it feels like you're prioritizing post-college success or lack thereof. And that's probably not the best indicator of like who the good friend is or who isn't. Now, maybe he sucks for a million different other reasons, but the stuff that you're pointing to here is that he is not caught up to you or you're lapping him in life. But the markers that you're using are the ones you should or would likely use as a 27-year. Maybe you shouldn't use them, but the ones you're most likely going to use when you get a little bit older and you start thinking about your sifting of your friend groups, the spring cleanup, if you will, getting out the rakes and garbage bags of like, how do I look at my friends and the people I invest time in? you probably prioritize different things, like who's loyal, who's there for me, who's not a one-way street. There's a couple friends that I've noticed over the years. I'm like, you know what? I've realized is that guy would never do anything for me, and yet is the first to ask me to do something for him. Like, what am I getting out of this relationship other than requests? So I think the older listeners would agree that if you were just going to get hammered at a wedding, which again would probably be a little different vibe at 47 if somebody was getting married for the first time versus 27, you would probably think of the personal resume that we all walk around with as there should be just different things that mean more. But when you're 26 and 27, and that's what happened to me, I'm still bartending in the same town. My 5-year reunion was coming up, and I was like, you cannot be here working at this place when everybody comes back. Like, you're going to feel like the biggest fucking loser ever. And I was starting to notice, and again, I didn't have any money to go anywhere with anybody, but I just was out of the mix. I had like this weird kind of out of the mix phase of like, yeah, I don't know what the hell he's doing. He was talking about like writing a TV show or something, so I was becoming that guy. Now, if this guy is asking you to hang out at the restaurant all the time and nobody wants to do it, that's just going to annoy people because it's on his terms, and maybe it makes it feel like he's hanging out with guys. I was still a good hang, so I don't think I have to worry about, like, it sounds like he also isn't great to hang out with. But is this just about him not being as successful as the rest of you, or is it also a big part of his personality? And for him to hear it, I'm sure he's had some self-awareness and some questions as he's measuring himself against all the other guys from back in the day, the gang, and the fact that he isn't on one of the other core group text chains. Like, maybe as we talk it out here, like there's more than him just not having the job. Because I just knew because I was still bartending that guys were thinking, like, and that's the other thing that I think is one of the most bullshit things. Like, if you're in your early 20s and you're post college, you're like, oh my God, he got a job at Morgan Stanley. Oh my God, he's killing it. And then the guy comes back up. He's got a couple sick pleated chinos that he's breaking out for the first weekend where the boys are getting together. Maybe he's still wearing a blazer on a Thursday at happy hour at this Irish place. And it's like, oh my God, Craig's doing so well. I'm like, yeah, he's a 401k now. Like, all that stuff's kind of bullshit. Craig's probably going to get caught with a fucking nanny, get fired, and, has his own start. He's going to be asking you to open a retirement account with him.
He's leasing a Porsche that he can't even afford. Yeah,
right.
Like, you think it's way more impressive than it is.
Yeah, there's all these different stages in life, but that one specific window, because I know what it was like, because I cared about it so much, and I believed in all of the bullshit so much, because it took me having to go through all of it to be like, oh, you guys are kind of full of shit, but you didn't have anything else to really compare it to. So I personally felt like, oh, I can't keep up with these guys, and I'm not. So that's really what's happening to your friend here, and you're holding him, like, you're grading him based on that, and it sounds like you're also grading him on, like you said, what was it that he wasn't? Let me look that up again here. He can be annoying when he's drunk, especially off-putting to people who don't know him. Yeah, I don't.
It doesn't sound like to me that it's just the career thing. It sounds like he's a little bit, and we all have this friend, and it's not a big deal. Like, I have, I have a group. I have about 5 really close friends. I've had 5 really close friends for a long time. I really can't handle more than that. I'm friendly with a lot of people, but I'm really only good friends with 5 people. And, there will be people that are like coming in and out of each group, different bachelor parties, and guys, they're kind of on the lower end, right? And that's okay. And sometimes you got to make numbers, but I think I think you just got to play it like normal. I mean, don't treat this guy any differently than you would at this new bachelor party. I mean, it's like one of those things, like, there are starters in the NBA. It doesn't mean the bench isn't important too. Those guys just aren't starter quality, right? It's just like, everybody has a role in the friendship and life in general. So, I'm sure this guy's bummed out, but I think what happened here is he just kind of had like I said, a ton of bricks hit him, and he had a realization that I think not only is his career not where he's at, but also he thought that he was way closer to maybe you guys than he is. And that stings and that sucks. But I don't know. Like, it's if you like hanging out with him and you like being around him. I mean, sometimes you get into a situation in life where you've just been friends with someone for so long that it's like, I don't really like this guy, but like we've been friends for a decade, and it's just too hard to make new friends. So I just keep inviting him to things. I know there's plenty of guys like that out there. Maybe that's this guy. Well, no. Maybe that's this guy. I don't know. But I if you like hanging out with him and he's, he could be a little up and down, he doesn't have his shit together, but you still like going to bachelor parties with him, then just treat him like normal. If he asks about it, I would just say it's not a big deal, man. The guy was drunk. Like we all because here's the thing. If you polled everyone in that friend group, there's a good chance that they would give you completely different rankings for every single person, right? Like everybody in a friend group is closer to somebody else.
You're right, but the fact they have a the bear text thread here is not a great sign.
Yeah.
So maybe the awareness part of it, maybe it's non-existent for him. Maybe this was the wake-up call. Maybe that's why it hurts so much. Or maybe he's just emotionally immature and can't handle it. Like the best thing ever would be being ranked 8th and not caring. That's growth.
Just going outside and ripping a cigarette and be like, whatever, cool. I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 8.
But then that gotta be way higher though.
Bridesmaids.
That gotta be way higher though. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Growth is being ranked 8th out of 8 guys and not caring. But you're right. If he didn't care, then he would never be 8th. Is there any chance he has a chance to move up in the rankings at the new bachelor party? Should they revisit the rankings? Could they go, hey, look, new rankings, and here's the criteria: available to drink on a Tuesday, discounts on takeout sandwiches, and still plenty of room to grow in the old 401k. I don't know. If he's ranked higher, does he start going, yeah, fuckers, I told you 8 was way too low?
Yeah, you just boost his ego. You boost his ego and have like a fake count, and it's like, oh man, you're 5 this time. Good job. Like you did a good job at the last bachelor party. So keep moving on up the rankings. I don't know. I wouldn't lie to him. I think genuinely
that'd be hilarious. It'd be hilarious if he started giving like 8 to 5 in just a few months, and then people would be like, "This is why you were 8."
Yeah, or maybe at the bachelor party you make him rank friends. Hey, what's your top 8?
He's like, well, those guys aren't even here.
Yeah, I don't even like you guys that much. It's tough.
Well, if he's too like sensitive, the rankings of the dudes is not for everybody. Okay,
no,
there's very few friend groups that can survive this kind of thing. I would say you're probably prioritizing the things that you would likely prioritize, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's a good or bad friend. It sounds like you're taking accounting of the person. Now, if he is both not as successful as you, but then you're also factoring the stuff that we don't have enough information on in the email other than just a couple tidbits. But the second text thread, actually, why are we even discussing this anymore? The fact that there's another text thread without him means this guy is going to be 8 now. No. He's going to be 8 in a year. He's going to be 8, 10 years from now. It's just not going to matter.
Yeah. I don't know.
You should be psyched he's even getting invited.
I have different text groups though with friends just based on different interests, and it doesn't mean I like or dislike anyone else, but like we have a soccer group thread. We've got, there's just like little side conversations all over the place. It doesn't mean that like I dislike or like those people more. It's just more based on interest. Now, if you have one it's all of you guys and there's another one where he's the only one not included. Yeah, that's probably
what it sounds like.
Issue.
Yeah. This thread is the not interested in Steve thread.
Yeah. I don't want to be invited to a bar, on your time and your dime kind of thing. This did give me a good idea though.
Let's hear it.
Maybe he takes this to heart and he wants to be a better friend, right? He's like, okay, I'm 8 and I got to be better. Like I want to invest in this friendship. Wouldn't it be funny? And this would never work because dudes would probably fight each other. But if there was like an AP poll style weekly thing that came out of rankings so that you could see where you are each week and it's all done anonymously and you just check the website every week and it's like, hey, I'm 5 this week. And just based on your activities as a friend, you just kind of go up and down. And maybe he really takes this to heart and he starts rising up the rankings. Maybe he starts inviting you out a little bit more, giving you gifts, like doing nice things to you, being an actual friend. And you kind of whip him into shape a little bit.
Imagine if Cannell were in that text thread and then he was just like, this whole thing's corrupt.
Yeah, he would abstain. He'd start the alliance of the other friends.
Just because I pulled a hamstring in golf means I'm not in the top 4.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. This was from a female woman listener.
Nice.
I've been with my boyfriend for a while now, and our relationship is great. He's a wonderful person. I'm very happy. There is, however, one thing that really bothers me. When we are walking together, he walks ahead of me or will just leave me behind. For example, the other night we parked across the street from the restaurant we were going to, and he started walking across the street before I was even out of the car. That's bullshit. We live in a city, so if we walk somewhere together, he will walk a couple steps ahead of me. Another issue is when getting up from a table, he would get up from the table and walk to the front door of the restaurant while I'm still gathering my purse and or jacket. Another dick move. I am certainly a slower walker and he's significantly taller, but it's unfair to expect him to walk with me or wait for me to get up from the table out of the car. I am a very independent person and don't care about gender norms, but I grew up having my dad always waiting for my siblings' mom, and I file out of somewhere first with him following.
Yeah, like he
wait.
always behind
I didn't
you
see
in
where
the
it broke up.
situation.
Right.
Yeah.
I grew up having my dad always wait for my siblings' mom and I to file out of somewhere first with him following. Yes. Okay. I misread that. So I just didn't want to I made her sound like she couldn't finish that sentence and I read it wrong. My boyfriend and I have gotten into fights about this quite a bit. I think it's rude, disrespectful, and embarrassing. I've told him why it bothers me, but he doesn't seem to get it. Am I overreacting? Nitpicking? My girlfriends agree with me, but I'm curious what other guys think. Can I, on one hand, say I'm an independent person, on the other, expect my boyfriend to not walk ahead of me? Is this hypocritical, or should he be waiting for me? Any advice is appreciated. Couldn't be more on your side. 100%, not debatable. What the fuck? Look, wait for your girlfriend. Wait for, at one point, what is your wife? It's completely rude. Now, you have to understand, like, some people just move at a different pace. Walking with Stanford Steve is one of the worst things of my entire career. The
like
Oregon at Washington game. Yeah, but honestly, it was kind of worse. Like when we were at Oregon, Washington, and he had the keys to the rental car, which was like a rental car in a parking lot outside of a college football stadium. And the rental car was some sort of four-door sedan that's some combination of blue that you're not really even quite sure what it is. And he walked so fast out of the stadium after the game was over, he just went right to the car. And Brad Edwards, we were lost because we didn't know. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I know you walk really fast, dude. And you're intense. And it was a thing he just had. It wasn't him necessarily being rude. He just couldn't walk slower. And whenever you walked anywhere with him, and I walk fast, this guy's fucking Jesse Owens compared to the rest of us, how fast Stanford Steve walks, that I would like give up. But in this case, specific to needing to figure out where the car was, it took like another 10 or 15 minutes to even find him, and leaving a stadium. And then it meant we got out later, and it meant we got stuck in traffic, and the whole thing was just a shit show. And I was like, how could you, like, I don't want to get into like a real fight with him, but I was pissed. I was actually really pissed, being like, why would you at any point have thought it was a great idea when you were the only one with the car keys to run that far ahead of us, knowing that we're all emptying the stadium at the exact same time? But look, Steve waits for no man. So we understood that. Now, I'm not dating Steve. Don't want to. Really like him. Don't want to date him.
Great guy, yeah.
Yeah, great guy. Great hang. All-timer. But this is so rude. And he doesn't, like, the fact that you've argued about it and you've told him and he hasn't changed, you were supposed to walk with your woman, female. You are, okay? There's even something probably that most listeners won't even understand, but I don't know where I even read it or how I figured it out. But I read it somewhere, is that as the man, you're supposed to walk on the curb street side, so that you're actually protecting your woman, female, from a car or any kind of traffic. Like, protocol is that she should not be walking on the street side of the sidewalk, that the men should be. And there's younger guys who are like, I cannot wait to fucking break this out this weekend. But I'm telling you, this is a real thing. I imagine most people, well, if a certain age, Ceruti, I'm shocked that you knew this. You knew this?
Definitely. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know
Maybe
that I
I'm not
practiced
the chivalrous dude I thought I was.
Well, no, I don't know that
it.
No, I don't know that I practice it, but I do know it's a thing. And I guess I'll try to here and then. Yeah. I'm not every time. I mean, I do hold the door. I do wait for Maddie. Like, it's not, that's just, I mean, I hate to say this, but that's just like, you're brought up that way. It's kind of like you can't fix that in some ways. You either get it or you don't get it, and your guy doesn't get it. So my question would be like, do you love the guy? Like, are you really into him? Is this the one flaw? Because if it's the one flaw, like the only thing is, it probably is really embarrassing in front of your other friends if all of their other guys are like holding their hand and grabbing their coat on the way out, and, you know, their hands on the small of their back as they walk out a door in a restaurant. Like, there's just something, you know, that's just really awesome about that. It makes you feel comforted I'm sure, I mean, shit, I would want that to happen if it was the other way around. So I understand like the issue here, but if that's the one red flag, it's not it's not the end of the world. But like, I feel like sometimes guys like that, if he doesn't care about the little things like that, that's not a good sign for long term. You know, like
that's the point, though, right? Like, is he fighting with you about this?
Yeah, like you
that's
think you'd
actually
want
the bigger red flag. Like if someone had said, hey, you're doing this and I hate it, and it's not that big of an ask, right? Hey, you're watching too many games. Oh, really? Well, do you like the house? You know, like that's a different conversation. But if this is something as simple, like what are you actually sacrificing by slowing down? Efficiency, right? It's like you're not getting, and I can understand like the fast pace, being a little intense, walking faster. But when this person that you care about is like, can you just slow down and walk at the same pace as me? We have generally, on average, longer limbs. All right. Dudes have been adjusting for a long time. You shouldn't want to fight this. You shouldn't want to win the argument of why it's okay for you to constantly, like, to walk across the street to a restaurant and your girl is still in the fucking car. Like, play this for him is the only advice we could give him or give you. But this is, I think it's nasty and it's so solvable, which is the problem. It's just walk slower. And this one thing that we have will make me feel better. And, you know, we can get into kind of like the arguments and everything of like, okay, men feel like this, women feel like this, and all these different things. To have to walk slower so that your companion feels better,
comforted,
is not
safe.
a huge ask. I mean, what's
kind of your role, man?
Yeah. So that becomes like that red flag territory. Is like, wait, you want to walk faster? You want me to be, because just because you think I'm like, it's one thing, like a couple different experiences that I've had where I'm like, how long are you going to take to get ready? And
one of the things that drives me nuts. Yeah, one of the things that drives me nuts is like, again, love Maddie, she's the best, but I tell her a lot, like whenever we leave a place, especially with like friends or family, you take way too long to leave. Like we say goodbye for like a half an hour. Can we just leave? And but I don't walk out of the door. You know, I'm not like, hey, I'll see you in the car and just leave her in there for another 20 minutes, because you got to be respectful, even if you disagree with whatever her speed is or what's going on. So this is why I would just ask, are there other things like this? Like, does he cook dinner and then like not leave you enough food, you know, or like, are there other little red flags where he's disrespectful? Because that's then okay. Then I think you have your answer. The complicated part is if this
does
is
he go to Thailand a lot alone?
If this is the one thing, then it's really hard to judge, because I think it's hard to say he doesn't care about you. Maybe he's just completely oblivious, and this gets back to like why self-awareness is the most important.
Can't be right, but he can't be oblivious about it anymore if they're arguing about it all the time. I just think it's such an easy thing to fix, and he shouldn't want to win. Of all the arguments where I'd be like, no, I'll take the guy's side on this one, or okay, this one, or like there's no other side. There's the right side and there's the wrong side, and then there's the outside of the curve. But we're on your side, and you should play him this.
Tough love.
Yeah. Okay. That'll do it. That's life advice. That's the episode. Thanks to Oregon. Thanks to Ceruti. You can check out our YouTube page. Please subscribe. Ryen Russillo Podcast, right here, Spotify.